impacting so that you help yourself, you help others, and ultimately you help the humanity. So as you can see on the screen, Caleb Low is a brand coach and one of the most sought after brand specialists in Singapore. He has the collaboration with many companies, including Alibaba subsidiary and various high profile clients. And he does corporate training as well for the top MNCs. And he will teach you without any spend, you can create the marketing platform. So with all these words, please, ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause to Caleb. And over to you, Caleb, and take us through a wonderful journey of influencing in the millennial way. Floor is yours, Caleb.
That is awesome. Thank you, Kaunain. Thank you, Tulika. And once again, thank you for Empowerment Talks for arranging this session for everybody. You know, when I was approached 2 days ago whether I wanted to speak at Empowerment Talks, my immediate answer was yes. And there's a very good reason for that. You see, on the 2nd of April, when Singapore went into lockdown because of the COVID-19, many people in my networks, our morale just dropped. Many people in my network, our morale immediately dropped. And here's why. We lived in a lot of fear. There was many people who were going to supermarkets and piling things off the shelf. So there's a lot of fear that was being spread. And just without me realizing it, I fell into that spiral of fear as well. And what happened was just 1 week later, when I was just about to readjust my business expectations, I told myself, I got a plan for a year of no income. I realized that I needed to get out of this negativity, but I just did not know how. But I chanced across one very short 30-minute webinar by a close friend of mine, and I figured, why not just join it? And in that 30 minutes, not only did he re-energize me in just 30 minutes, he gave me enough fuel to last all the way till today. And because of that, this fuel he gave me allowed me to give fuel to many more people, to over 1,000 people that I've managed to reach out to over the past 4 months. So I hope that today, for those of you who are feeling either highly energetic or feeling down, hopefully we're able to absorb today's energy and use it as a way to pivot to impact more lives moving forward. Okay, so before we start, I just want to check with everybody. I want to know each of you a little bit better. Okay, so I'm Caleb, the brand coach from Singapore, from the small sunny island of Singapore. I would love to know, what are your names, which country you're from, and what do you do? Okay, so if you just let me know what's your name, what country are you from, and what do you do? So please go to the group chat and introduce yourself. Fantastic, fantastic, good. So we have some people from Mumbai, India. We have some people in Dubai, some from Singapore. Junkie, welcome, you're from India, love that. Tulika from Dubai, you're an e-commerce professional. Khalid, trainer all from UK, wow, from Europe as well. Shajesh from Dubai. Vinit from Delhi, India. Surya, India. Chandu, you're from Hyderabad, India, you're a student, lovely. Jocelyn from Singapore, the visibility strategist. Come, keep it coming. Mushtaba, you're an Indian working in Kuwait. Oh, lovely. It's a very fine city. Eugene from Topayo. Eugene's from Singapore. He lives in the small, tiny town of Topayo. But in Singapore, every town is tiny, right? And Josh, you're from Singapore. Mali from India. Roy from Singapore. Melroy from Dubai. India from Kerala. Oh, I've got a friend from Kerala as well, and he's now an official citizen of Singapore. But I heard that people in Kerala are really, really smart. Am I right, Jafar? Fantastic. All right. So today I'm going to share with you a topic that's very close to my heart. I've been very blessed in the past 2 years where I've managed to dive into the personal branding industry in Singapore. And for the past 1.5 years, I've ventured into the coaching industry on personal branding. And in this very short time, I've been incredibly blessed because my clients are people who are either your top lawyers in Singapore, they are executive coaches, and they coach your toughest nails C-suites in global MNCs. I've also managed to coach millionaires, high net worth sales trainers, and even 6 and 7 figure salespersons. I've also had the pleasure of collaborating with a subsidiary of the Alibaba group, the one based in China. I'm also doing a lot of corporate training with the top MNCs in sales. And in the past 4 months, I've also managed to reach more than 1,000 people, either through training or coaching, over Zoom during the COVID season, and I managed to get my message passed on to them, right? And so it's been incredible just a year and a half, because my goal is very simple. My goal in life is just to bless people and to impact their lives. That is my goal, and it sounds really wonderful how in a short period of time, I've managed to access these group of clients. However, the thing about social media is that when people talk about how good things are, it could give a very false impression that their life is really, really good, right? And the truth is, my life wasn't always as good. I was never the kid who was able to attract high net worth people or people of a certain caliber. I just wasn't that type of individual. And in fact, when I first started my journey, I had this issue, okay? And can you firstly guess what issue do you think I faced when I first started my business? Okay, what was the main issue do you think I faced when I first started my business? Could you just take a guess in the group chat? Keep it coming, keep it coming. What issue do you think I faced when I first started my own business? Public speaking, not quite. Colored lack of experience, yes, but there was an even bigger struggle that I faced. What else? Eugene, too good looking? Yeah, that's a huge problem. I'm just too good looking, my goodness. Jocelyn, self-esteem, fear of failure, client communication, finding customers, industry knowledge, fear of failure, experience. Those are all correct. Yes, I did experience a lot of those, but my biggest issue was that I look too young. I look too young, right? And sometimes this is a huge disadvantage, because every time you meet a prospect, they'll go, Caleb, how old are you? You look really young. Or Caleb, how many clients have you served? Or Caleb, how long have you been doing this? And every time I heard these questions, right? These are questions to say verbally, but the real question that they weren't saying, that they were actually meaning was, Caleb, who on earth are you? Caleb, who on earth are you? And that was my journey. And it predates not just 2 years ago, it predates 15 years. And today, as I talk about leadership or influence the millennial way, I'm going to just bring you through 6 stories of my life of how I have had to unlearn certain concepts of leadership, certain concepts of influence. And until I removed these concepts, only then was I able to impact lives. Or was I able to have people wanting me to impact their lives? So I'm going to invite you on a journey today where I go back to me just being a kid. In fact, not just a kid, but a teenager. See, when I was a teenager, I grew up having a great childhood. From an upper middle class family, I played with toys like Power Rangers, and to me, to today, this is still the most epic toys to ever be sold in childhood history. In the history of childhood, and I'll play them, and it was perfectly normal childhood. And when I hit my early teens, I began to experience certain things like puberty. I became more self-conscious about image. And here's the thing, for a 14-year-old boy who wants to impress the girls, who wants to start to find his own identity, it was very hard to do so when many girls were saying things like, Caleb, you're very skinny. You're very skinny. And it's fine once or twice, but to hear it over and over again, Caleb, you're very skinny. Or Caleb, I wish I had your figure. I wish I had your skinny figure. When you hear it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there's this emasculating effect that it has on your mind. And once this happens, this disease comes in, and this disease is called insignificance, okay? Insignificance. And once you believe you're insignificant, it brings you to the spiral of insecurity. Now, I've always had a very good nature growing up. In fact, when I was 14 years old, I recall my dream goal was to be a social worker. My dream job was to be a social, which young boy, ever thinks of being a social worker at 14? No one. But that was where I felt my natural giftings come in. And I wanted to help people. But when you find that you're not valued, when you find that you're spiraling in insecurity, it eats into you. And for people who are insecure, they fall into one of 2 categories, okay? Either they're so insecure that they cower in one corner and they fade in the background, or they overcompensate and they try to prove that they are right in every way. They try to win every single argument, right? And somehow, and why did they do that? Because they want to win approval to validate themselves. Am I right? And here's the thing, I was the latter person. I was the person who was trying to win every argument, trying to prove that I'm right, so that when I'm right, people will like me. But by trying to make people like me this way, I actually pushed people away. In fact, I was so insecure that I recall that I would talk down on my mother, who is only this tall, so that I can feel more secure about myself. That is story one. Let me bring you, so this in story one, this is the one of the key lessons that I learned that I had of the wrong impression I had about leadership. That if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. Okay, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. That is influence lesson number one. Let's move on to story two. For story two, every Singaporean male has to serve the army for 2.5 years, right? And there was a lot of internal pressure when I entered the army because my dad, he's a military man. In fact, he was one of the higher ranking officers because he's one of the first generation of soldiers in Singapore and has served the army his entire life. He only retired at the end of 2019, December last year. So when I went to the army, I wanted to prove myself, right? And I was good enough to hold a command position. I was a third sergeant, and I was in charge of leading a team of 6 men under my care. But here's the problem. I knew what to do. I knew the strategies. I knew how to get them to charge and defeat the enemy. However, I did not win their respect. For some reason, they refused to listen to me, and I had a very bad and toxic relationship, not just with the 6 men, but with the entire platoon. In fact, it got so bad that a 1.5 years into my army stint, my officer in command one day called me into the office. He sat me down and he said, "Caleb, this is not working out. Your men are not listening to you. We have to remove you of command. Someone else will replace you." Just like that, I practically lost my rank over a conversation in the office. I recall walking back from the office to my bunk. I walked past all my men's bunk, and they were just playing a fool. They were smoking. They were hitting each other with bolsters and pillows. And today it was just to them, it was just another regular day. I walked past them, knowing that every one of them looked down on me. I went to my bunk, and that night, being alone, I just broke down in tears. That was story number 2. And the lesson I had to learn the hard way was, in influence today, your rank does not matter. In influence today, your rank does not matter at all. That was a painful lesson that I had to learn. So I went through the army, I graduated, and it was time to look for a job. So I did what every young graduate did. We bought new clothes, right, to make sure that we look professional. We dressed up and we applied for jobs through our resumes. The only thing is that for the first 2 years upon graduation, that happened during the 2008-2009 economy crisis. It was a global crash. And as a result, for 2 years, I struggled to find a job. I was unemployed for 2 whole years. And when I was finally employed by a very recognized company in Singapore, I was the worst performer for 4.5 years. Every single day, I would go to the office and I'll do my job. And at the end of the year, I'll be the worst performing staff. In fact, I was so bad that either my colleagues were very kind and polite with me, or another group of colleagues would just target me straight on. They have a target on my back and they'll find every opportunity to run me down. In fact, there was a period of time when I was a fairly senior staff in my company, and there was new staff who just entered in. One day we were having lunch in our meeting room. Yeah, we bought food from our market. We ate in their office room together, and as I ate my noodle soup, a bit of soup spilled on my shirt. So instinctively, I grabbed the nearest tissue paper I could find and I dabbed it dry. Right after I did this, a voice just shouted across the room saying, "Caleb, can you ask for permission before you take my tissue? So rude." This lady was one of the ladies who had placed a target on my back the day I joined. And she blasted this sentence in front of everyone, even the new colleagues who joined. I almost tendered my resignation that day. And this is, again, brings us to a very powerful lesson in the lesson of influence. And it is, people can smell mediocrity. People can smell mediocrity, right? I try to hide it by talking well, by dressing well, by standing tall, and I could charm people outside my department. But within my department, I was mediocre and I was always found out. So after that, I decided, after 4.5 years of being the worst performing staff, I left with a lot of shame. I decided to start a business. So as a result, I donned a suit, ready to charm the world, knowing that no one else knows my poor background of over 12 years, and I was ready to impact lives. So I chose the route of being an image consultant. But the issue was, despite trying my best, despite doing whatever I can, I only earned a total of 700 USD over 2 years. In the first 2 years of my business, I earned 700 USD over 2 years. That wasn't even enough to pay for my basic electricity bills. My wife was a sole breadwinner, and for me to feel some level of significance or to feel that I'm at least contributing, I did things like ironing the clothes, mopping the floor, doing the dishes. At least I felt I was somewhat contributing. That was my journey up to 2 years ago, when things suddenly took a turn for my business. And I want to share what happened next. How did Caleb, from experiencing insecurity to experiencing demotion in the army, to experience a shame in his corporate world, to experiencing brokenness trying to do his business, what happened at that turning point that allowed him to work with clients who are top lawyers, executive coaches, serial business owners, 6- and 7-figure salespersons, the Alibaba group, without spending $1 on marketing? What happened? Well, to be honest, it was understanding how leadership has evolved and how the influence has evolved, and it's about doing it the millennial way. So the first turning point was when I decided to use social media to brand myself, to use social media to promote my business, but to also do it in a very different way. The real turning point in my business, and this happened exactly 2 years to date, because Facebook memories reminded me what happened. 2 years ago, I shared my story for the very first time. I shared my painful story, things about my insecurity growing up as a skinny boy wanting to impress people. I shared about how I failed in the army and how my men looked down upon me, and the shame of having a rank stripped in front of people who do not like you. And when I shared it, people suddenly turned their heads in my direction. This was a huge turning point, because from a complete nobody, within the next 4 months, this story led to 12 training and speaking engagements within the first 4 months. And that was a huge lesson for me, because through this, I learned that when you embrace yourself, you inspire others. When you embrace yourself, you inspire others. See, very often we try to hide our past. We try to put it in one corner. We try to be the leader that we grew up knowing leaders to be, right? Unfortunately, times have changed, and I've had to realize that unless I open up myself and share strategically my vulnerable moments, my authentic moments, only then would I win the attention of people. In fact, it was so impactful that I began to hear things about me that I've never heard in my entire life. Things like, Caleb, you really know your stuff. Or Caleb, I am following you on social media because you share very important stuff. Or Caleb, like when I first saw you post, I'm like, who's this new kid on the block? And that was a complete mind reframe for myself, because even though they respected me, I was still learning to respect myself. Even though they respected me, I was still learning to respect myself. So lesson number 1 on influencing the millennial way: embrace yourself and inspire others, and never stop doing that. So as I grew in my branding, I became fairly sought after for somebody who had no clients, no testimonials, no money for a marketing budget, yet people still came to me, right? One day I landed, I had this lawyer contact me, and I was really nervous, because for somebody who was an unknown, to have a top lawyer in Singapore reach out to me, you kind of wonder, Caleb, am I good enough? Am I good enough? And he's not just any lawyer. He was a pioneering lawyer who believes that divorce cases should not be contested in the court because it breaks families apart even more. So he believes in pushing for peaceful divorce, but he tries to prevent divorce as best as possible. And in fact, it was only just last week that the court has made it a stance to do it his way. So he was a pioneering lawyer in his own right. And to have someone of his caliber come to me, let's just say that I was shaking walking into his office. But as I went to his office, I realized that in his mind, he was already finding ways to pay me money, right? So that's what he said, Caleb, I already know I want to engage you. I already know you can help me with branding. I just don't know how, whether it's training or coaching. I do not know, but I know you can help me. And this completely surprised me, because apparently he's been feeling as though his problems could be solved just by looking at my social media posts. He said, Caleb, I feel that when you write on social media, you are writing about me. And this was a very intentional strategy that I decided to use, because I believe that when it comes to influence, it has to be a two-way relationship. And the danger of just sharing your personal story, your shames, your authenticity, your vulnerabilities, is that it brings all the focus back to you. So I decided to use certain different strategies so that I can make it a two-way relationship instead of one way. And this strategy was me raising people up. So for example, if somebody were to post their opinion on social media, I'll write a comment asking for his expert opinion on another issue. Or when I go to my Facebook, to my WhatsApp group, and I find that the real estate agents in there have been really quiet, I will ask for their opinion, on their expert opinion, on a particular question. And suddenly all these real estate agents will feel like they want to give their expert opinion, because that makes them feel valued. In fact, this was so powerful that one day when one of my friends posted about how he trained his team of insurance agents on how do you door knock effectively, I raised him up through the comment section. And his friend, he saw my comment and he said, Caleb, I want to learn social media branding from you. So when I tried to raise somebody up, his friend saw my post and he said, I want to learn social media branding from you. His friend happened to be a multi-millionaire, happened to be a serial business owner, and that allowed me access into his network just like that. Why? Because I believe it is about making people the center of the universe. When you want to influence people, we have to make them the center of the universe. And when you make people feel so good, the loyalty to you deepens and they do not want to engage anyone else but you. So influence lesson number 2 is make people the center of the universe. Story number 6. And this is a little bit radical. Why? Because I'm going to share with you one thing I did yesterday to a group of top financial advisor leaders after a webinar. I gave away a portion of my paid training content to them. I gave away a portion of my paid training program to them for free, right? And I have people I have corporates who pay me very comfortable sums of money, right? And I'm happy to take a small portion of the content through a recorded video and give it to them for free. Right? And this is completely radical, and I'll share more later. And this was a very powerful technique for me because this technique started my journey to being a coach, from just a personal branding expert to niching down into an effective coach. So when I was fairly new, 4 months into my personal branding journey, I was doing a lot of free education. I was teaching people what to do to grow their brand. And what this did was that it caught the attention of one particular individual, and till today, and he became my client eventually. So he's been following me for a while without my knowledge, and sometime in November 2018, he dropped me a message on Facebook, and he said, "Caleb, I want to find out more about social media branding. Can we meet up?" So I said, "Sure, Jerain, let's meet up. Are you free this week?" And he said, "No, I'm in Japan on holiday with my girlfriend." And I'm like, "What? Get out of here. You should not be talking to me while on holiday with your girlfriend. Go and spend time with her." But he took time to message me while on holiday with his girlfriend to meet up with me. So we arranged to meet in December. And he said, "Caleb, I've been following you for so long. I see your content. It's amazing. I learned a lot. And I want you to be my coach. Caleb, do you coach?" Well, my mouth said yes, but my mind said, you will just be my first ever coachee, that's all, right? And that's how I began my journey as a coach. And within 3 weeks of coaching, he became an influencer overnight. One post he wrote went crazy viral. That was in January last year, 2019. Till today, people are still seeing that very same post, and it's flying around South America, right? So there's about 90,000 likes, 70,000 comments, and there's about 80,000 shares to today. And that completely changed the game. Today in Singapore, he's one of the top 4 influential financial advisors, and he teaches other financial advisors how to brand themselves, right? And this is a very powerful lesson, is that if you want to influence people, give everything. If you want to influence people, give everything you've got. And here's the reason why. Many people say, "Caleb, you're dumb. Caleb, you're stupid. Why are you giving people for free what others are willing to pay for?" Right? And my answer to them is very simple. Back in the day in the 90s, do you recall how people would buy the Tony Robbins cassette tape set for 4,000 USD? And when they received the cassette tapes, they're so excited. They put in the cassette tapes one by one, listen for 3 hours, remove it, put in the next cassette tape. Today, if you ask somebody to pay $4,000 for a recording, no one is going to pay that amount. Because why? Information is too abundant right now. The value of information is free. The value of information today is 0. So the purpose of giving everything that makes me want to give everything is knowing this. Because in the sea of information today, people cannot implement. In the sea of information today, people can learn, but they can never implement. So as a result, the purpose of me giving information is for them to realize that I know my stuff. It's for them to realize that I am credible and I can help them. I know that 99% of them, when they receive my information for free, they would not implement it themselves. As a result, they will pay me for transformation. They will learn information for free, but they will pay me for transformation. And when that happens, that's how I separate myself from the crowd. That's how I become a voice of authority to a big pool of audience. I've shared, in the past half an hour, I've shared a few things. How we first started off with the first lesson, the first mistake I made, that when you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. This is something that all of us must be ready to let go. The second thing we realized was, today, your rank does not matter anymore. The company you're from does not matter. The credibility that you embrace so tightly does not matter anymore. If you want to influence in an age where millennials are starting to take over the world, it is time to get rid of this mindset. The third thing is, people can smell mediocrity. So if you and I allow ourselves to stay in this pit, this dark, moist pit of mediocrity, people will not want to follow you. It is time to remove this mindset. Instead, It's about embracing self so that you can inspire others. It's about making your audience the center of the universe and make them feel really special. And it's about giving your all. You know, the thing about, as we tie back into my childhood, I shared how I wanted to be a counselor growing up. And thank God today, as a coach, I sometimes find myself a highly paid counselor. There's many times where having a session on the phone, over Zoom, or face-to-face, my clients break down in tears. That's because in personal branding, it's not just about being famous. It's not just being about the go-to person in the industry, but it's about recognizing your own value in the world today. And in a sense, I have achieved my goal. I'm not a counselor by name, but I'm a counselor in practice, right? And in order for that to happen, I have to realize that influence is synonymous with this key word, and this word is connection. Connection is a new definition of influence today. It is no more about trying to put on this armor to impress people, trying to put aside all insecurities and try to use our credibility, to use big statistics, to talk about big achievements to impress people. That does not work anymore. Instead, if you want to be given the permission to impact people's lives, let me invite you. It is time to remove every single layer that we have been burdened by from the day we were born, to acknowledge our self and let this self resonate with people who love our story. This way, we have the permission to inspire, influence, and impact their lives. My name is Caleb Lau. I'm the brand coach. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a powerful presentation, Caleb. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Caleb, please. Wherever you are, if you are listening, use the reaction button and give a big round of applause to Caleb. What a wonderful way to explain the authenticity. What a wonderful way to explain the reality. And what a wonderful way to explain how you can touch the people's heart and connect with the reality. And that's the power of connection. That's the power of networking. And that's how we can influence others to take an action. And when someone takes action with your communication, the world gets changed. So thank you, Caleb, for a beautiful thoughts. And I'm sure in this room, all 52 participants, whosoever are listening, you are getting inspired. And this conversation has definitely inspired everyone. Thank you so much. And I have some quick question. I would like you to please give the response quickly. And I'll request our audience also to raise your hand and ask questions to Caleb. And Caleb will give a short answers to all of the questions. So before I go to audience, Caleb, I would like to ask one quick question that how exactly you define the brand when I am as an individual is thinking about myself or the audience present here? What exactly they should understand about the word brand and how they should position themselves to influence others in their respective areas or whatsoever they are doing? Yes, Caleb.
So thank you, Kaunain, for that question. It's a very valid question. In fact, the word branding or personal branding is currently in danger of being so diluted until it loses its meaning completely, because this word is being thrown around too easily today. So as a result, when people come to me for branding, this is what I tell them to expect if they were to work with me. That in branding, your goal is to achieve three things. Firstly, you have to inspire others. Secondly, it is to connect genuinely. And thirdly, is to prime people to pay you. Okay, so it's to inspire others, connect genuinely, and prime people to pay you. So let me explain why. Inspire people, right? I've never heard somebody who said, I want to engage this vendor because they're uninspiring, or I want to engage this vendor because he's mediocre. No one ever thinks like that, right? People want to hire the best for themselves. So as a result, if we cannot inspire people, it is very hard to be the go-to person because that is something what people are looking for. So for me, I like to look at things from my customer perspective. What they need, I will try my best to grow into that role. Secondly, it's about connecting genuinely, because we're talking about, especially with social media today, the power of relationships has enhanced in any working relationship. So as a result, if we're not connecting genuinely, people will feel as though we do not care about them. So social media has really changed the game for many business owners, where it's not just about being good in what you do, but the value of empathy, the soft skills come in really handy today. So what used to be not valued in the past, right, today is very handy because it's all about building genuine connections with people who will be loyal to you. And the third one is to prime people to pay you. That's because branding has often been accused of being too long-term a game, and it's very hard to track ROI. So the point of branding is to make sure heads turn to you and you only, and every time they see your content, they get warmer and warmer and warmer to engage you one day. So with my clients, we focus on strategies that achieve these three at any one point in time, so that it becomes a very holistic approach and they can become the industry leader to their audience.
Thank you, Caleb. And I will request some of our audience who are ready with the questions. And I'll request Vineet Saxena, who has joined us from India. And Vineet has some question to you. Caleb, are you ready? Vineet, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Caleb. Am I audible to you?
Hi, Vineet. Good afternoon to you. Good evening to you too.
Yeah. So, Caleb, thanks for this wonderful presentation. Really inspiring and a wonderful way to present any of the presentation I have ever seen. So, it's a great congratulations to you. One of the things you have mentioned today is that people can smell the mediocrity. I also believe this thing that people can smell the mediocrity. What I find that in my corporate career, I also remain very low profile and genuine kind of person. And what I find that people are spelling that mediocrity and they don't pay much attention to my wordings and all. So what is the lesson should I get from this? That should I start showing them the attitude kind of thing, or how to overcome from this mediocrity mindset which people have in about me in their minds? This is my question to you.
Right. Vinit, so if I may just paraphrase your question so that I know that at least I'm answering the right question. You're talking about for people who struggle with mediocrity, what can they do to get out of it so that they can shine at their workplace? Is that something, was that close to what you were asking, Vineet? Okay, Vinit's a great question. And to be honest, I resonate a lot with it, right? Personally, there's two reasons why people might stay in mediocrity. Firstly, is either they are highly unmotivated in their work, right? And they don't see a purpose of it. And I can resonate a lot with this group of people because that was me in the corporate job, right? I was never motivated to really rise very fast. I was in a job where it paid comfortably, but I didn't have any drive during that point in time. So even though my external circumstances was painful, it was never painful enough to leave my job. So was there a need for me to want to overlearn? That there wasn't a need for me to overlearn. But now that I'm running my business, I realize that if I want to provide for my wife, if I want to stop ironing the clothes, to stop mopping the floor just to feel like I'm contributing, then I might need to have a shift in mindset and find a purpose, right? And the purpose could be in your current job, it could be in a different job, it could be starting a business. But I believe that once there's a purpose set before us, man, the desire to run and sprint is incredibly high. It's incredibly high, right? So to me, there's a reason why people succeed, because the desire to grow is incredibly strong. I mean, you compare me to someone like Elon Musk, I'm incredibly mediocre. You compare me to the senior advisor of the Alibaba group, the person who brought me in for collaboration, I feel like I'm underachieving beside him. For example, when he brought me to Hangzhou for the Alibaba convention last year, he was always on the go. He was always answering his emails, replying text message. And for me, just following him around, sitting in a couple of meetings, doing my own work from here and there, I felt exhausted by 11 p.m. At 2, 3 a.m., he was still running fast and getting things done. Right? His net worth today is more than $500 million. That's because his desire and his goal is really strong. Yeah, so for people who feel as though you're swimming in mediocrity, I think the first thing I'll ask is to discover the why, because it is only yourself that can drive you to want to achieve more.
Thank you so much, Caleb. And ladies and gentlemen, our respected audience, the message to all of you is that we had invited Caleb for 1st of August, 106th episode, but you must be knowing the date in Singapore is going to change. Right, Caleb? What's the time there?
5 minutes time, yes.
5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize. We don't have enough time today. And with this, I would like to thank Caleb for all your time. And I would like to thank Caleb that the way you express the reality of influencing in today's digital world. And I'm sure we all have learned so many things from your talk. And I'll just present this slide for my audience that the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us is that from Caleb Lowe, that embrace self, inspires others. And this is what is one of the why of empowerment talks. Every day, consistently, we are inspiring others. We are inspiring you all. We are inspiring ourselves. So on the behalf of founders of empowerment talks, my request to you all is that please take the learnings from here and keep on inspiring yourself and others, and make it sure that you make the people to whomsoever you are interacting the center of the universe, and give whatsoever you have. Give everything. And just on the other note, that in this part of the world, we are staying with a specific time. When we leave this world, go to other world, that we take with us whatsoever we give everything here. So make it sure that you give whatsoever you have, and then you can definitely inspire yourself and the people around you. So with this word, I would like to say thank you, Caleb, for all your inspirational thoughts. And I'll request Tulika to kindly run the remaining 2 slides quickly, and then a quick thanks to Caleb. Tulika, if you are around, just quickly wrap it up. Over to you, Tulika.
Thank you so much, Kaunain, sir, for taking us through this the wonderful ending of the session. And Caleb, wow, the session was so good. I have learned a lot, and every time I was listening to you and the way you were wearing the blazer, the innovative way of putting in the message was incredible, and I was totally amazed. I mean, I thought those blazers behind are like just for the show. But when you were putting it on one after the other, I was like, wow, now it's getting very, very interesting. So you kept me hooked on completely. You're an amazing storyteller, and thank you so much for joining us today. In spite of it being late, I am so glad I could hear you. And now I can know what Eugene was talking about as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. And I will quickly conclude the session. And once again, my complete gratitude to you. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you all the audience who joined us from Singapore, from Dubai, from all across the world. A big, big, big thank you to you. And we are so sorry we couldn't take the questions today, but I will quickly conclude the session, and you can connect with Caleb. I've shared all his links in the chat box, his LinkedIn, his Instagram. Yeah, go ahead and follow him and write a review about him, connect with him, take his help. He's very good at branding, and he will definitely assist you as well. And I will quickly share my presentation to conclude this session. 1 second.